Okay, okay. All right, good morning. Thank you for spending your day off from work here with us. I know you guys have a lot of resources for getting CEUs, but I appreciate you being here to learn about something that's very dear to my heart, organ, eye, and tissue donation. As Colleen said, my name is Marie Brandon. I'm a One Legacy ambassador. I am also a neonatal ICU nurse, 20 years at UCI Medical Center in Orange, a certified grief educator, board member at the nonprofit Gloves for Grief, and the writer for The Journey. However, my most significant accomplishment and greatest joy of my life is being a mom to 3 beautiful children. 2 daughters, Emma and Isabella, and my favorite son, Jacob. He's my only son, so I'm allowed to say that. Jacob Douglas Robert Brandon, the boy with 4 first names. When Jacob was little, he didn't really care what we called him. As a mom, I always called him my little boy, and he called me Mama. As he grew older, it was not acceptable to him to be called a little boy. So he became my little man. But I'm not sure that he liked that much better. I think it was sometime during high school that he started to go by Jake. And then his coaches would always call him by Brandon. It got very confusing. But to me, he was always and will always be my little man. Jacob was the embodiment of a typical kid. He liked Legos and making funny faces, Star Wars, video games, Dave and Buster's, bugs. He liked bugging his sisters. He liked bugging his sisters with bugs, so much that earned him the nickname Bugger. But who could blame him? Not only is he the middle child, but growing up he was surrounded by females. 2 sisters and all female cousins. Even our dog Zoe was a female. He never stood a chance. But I also think that's one of the reasons why he had such a kind heart and grew to be such a patient young man. Jacob also played various sports as a kid. Soccer, baseball, football, and lacrosse. Lacrosse was by far my favorite to watch. I'll never forget the parent day camp his high school team hosted, where the players taught us the fundamentals and then we scrimmaged. This memory actually popped up on my Facebook just like 2 days ago, and there were quite a few more pictures than the little one I have here, and a video of him recording me playing, and all I could hear was him laughing consistently in the background, just laughing, that obnoxious laugh. That's a memory I'm going to treasure and hold close to my heart forever. Jacob was so patient with me that day. Laughing at me, yes, but he never got frustrated with my mistakes. It was then that I knew he would make an incredible father one day. Even with all the different sports growing up, his favorite hobby was video games. Jacob was an avid League of Legends player. He played with such passion that we could hear him screaming through the walls sometimes until the wee hours of the morning. If any of you have kids obsessed with video games, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't have kids yet, but you want to, I hope that you get the chance. There is no greater joy as a parent than hearing your child's laughter. I can still hear it in my head when I look at these pictures. His obnoxious, infectious laugh. He was always such a goofball, rarely in a bad mood, and had a wicked, dark sense of humor that as a nurse I always appreciated. I miss hearing his laugh more than words can express. And I miss his hugs. At 6 feet tall, he gave the best bear hugs. He would sneak up behind me and hug me so tight and just say, "Love you, Mama." But after April 30th, 2023, I would never get another bear hug from my son. The weekend started like any other. We spoke Saturday morning about his younger sister's upcoming 16th birthday and when was his last day of college before summer break so we could plan our family trip. After our talk, he headed downstairs to play his video games, and I left with Isabella. "Love you, Jake. Have a good night at work. See you tomorrow." "Love you, Mama. Good luck teaching Izzy how to drive." Those are the last words I would ever hear from my little man. Sunday morning, 5:24 a.m., a phone call from his girlfriend that shattered our world. Jacob had been in a motorcycle accident on the way to her parents' house. Without knowing where the ambulance took him, I headed in the direction of the accident, praying and pleading to God, "Please let my little boy be okay. If you must take him, please at least let him be alive so I can say goodbye." After multiple phone calls, I learned he was taken to the only level 1 trauma center in Orange County, UCI Medical Center, the very hospital where I work. The hours that followed are a blur. Police officers, hospital staff, insurance paperwork, no one giving me answers or letting me see my son. I remember being ushered into a private room by 2 trauma intervention program or TIP volunteers, given Jacob personal effects. It felt like I was there for hours. In reality, it was mere minutes. Then the doctor came into the room. I immediately knew by the look on her face, the same look I've seen on the face of doctors I work beside, the same look I've had on my own face. I remember ending up on the ground, screaming, crying hysterically, physically ill. I don't know how long that lasted before mom mode kicked in. I needed to tell my girls. How do you tell your daughters that their brother is gone? His older sister Emma was at home waiting for me to call with an update. His younger sister Izzy was at a friend's sleepover, having no idea what had even happened. I knew I couldn't tell them over the phone. I asked Emma to pick up her sister and head to the hospital. If she didn't already know by the sound of my voice, I'm sure she could see it on my face before I could get a word out. It took some time before we were allowed to see Jacob. We were taken into the room. It wasn't even a room, it was an ER cubicle with a curtain. The staff had tried to clean up, but the remnants of chaos were evident. The TIP volunteer gave us as much time as we needed, but how do you say goodbye to your only son? No amount of time would have ever been enough. The moment had come for them to take him. When they wheeled away Jacob, an American flag draped over him. I watched as my child, the boy who once fit in my arms, the young man with so much more to offer this world, was disappearing down the corridor. I honestly don't remember when I was approached about donation. It was sometime after his passing, but before they wheeled him away. I was asked if I knew my son was a registered donor. Because of his service in the Marines, Jacob and I had talked about his wish to be cremated if something had happened on deployment, but never about organ donation. I knew I was pro-donation, but I wasn't sure what Jacob would have wanted. Fortunately, I didn't have to make that decision. I wasn't surprised when they told me that he was a registered donor. Jacob always was the first to offer help to anyone, friend or stranger. I was told somebody would be in contact with me later by phone that day. I remember the phone conversation well. So many questions, some very personal, questions that no parent wants to have to answer about their kid. But the woman on the other end of the call was so patient, her voice so calming, so willing to explain every step and answer my never-ending questions. I was informed because of his extensive injuries, most likely what would be donated would be his corneas, heart valves, skin, bone, and tissue. I was hopeful that his heart, lungs, or kidneys would be able to save someone's life, but that wouldn't be the case. Because Jacob's donations were eye and tissue, the process to be notified of any successful transplants would take at least a year. 14 months later, on July 12th of last year, 1 week after what would have been Jacob's 24th birthday, I received the phone call. Jacob gave the gift of sight to 2 individuals through cornea donation. He also donated 1 heart valve, 2 major veins, and 127 bone tissue and skin grafts. As of today, my sweet, amazing little man was able to positively affect the lives of 132 people through the gift of donation. I say as of today because tissue donations can continue for years past the standard hours that organs are viable. Jacob hated being the center of attention, so he's probably looking down on us with rolling eyes and face red with embarrassment as I speak about him now. But I also know how much he liked helping people and what a huge heart he had. I knew that about him at a very young age. Whether it was befriending the new kid in elementary school, spending his summer building houses in Alaska, or driving 2 hours in LA traffic to sit with his girlfriend in her hospital bed after her chemo treatment, his care for other people was one of his best qualities. I remember hearing his fellow Marines speak of him in the same way at his funeral. I was resentful of the time I missed out with him because of his years of service, but hearing how he led his fellow Marines, how he took the younger recruits under his wing, always wanting to teach them something new, makes me so proud. Jacob made such a positive impact on so many people in his short 22 years. I often see this saying, be the thing you love most about your loved one who is gone. His massive caring heart towards others with his willingness to help and teach is one of the gazillion things that I love most about him. His legacy will carry on, and not only in those 132 recipients' lives that he changed, but because we will make sure people continue to learn from his story. When a child loses their parents, they are an orphan. When someone loses their spouse, they are a widow. What about the ones that lose a child or a sibling? What are we? The death of a loved one is devastating. The death of your own child is a pain like no other. It goes against the natural order of things. It's known as veloma. No parent should have to survive in a world that their child no longer lives in. But there is the tiniest bit of comfort knowing that Jacob's finally earthly act was a donation, was a selfless, giving, impactful one. Just like he was as a human being, selfless, and just as he lived his life, impactful. This bit of comfort in Jacob's wishes were made possible by the nurses at UCI Medical Center. It's because a nurse, doctor, healthcare professional like you, that my son wasn't only a hero in life, but also in death. As a nurse, I knew we do everything possible to save our patients. Sometimes it just isn't enough. When those times happen, it's difficult to switch modes from saving our patient to what we can do to save another life through this tragedy. I am familiar with the uneasy task of calling one legacy, and the time leading up to calling, whether it's the onset of clinical triggers, or in my son's case, the ability to donate after death. I know there are so many tasks us nurses have to juggle, and some of those may take precedence over a phone call. I encourage you to continue making that effort, to think about my son Jacob. It's because a nurse took a moment and made the call in a timely manner that Jacob's legacy will live on and 137 lives were saved or improved, and why I became a One Legacy ambassador 6 months ago. I remember the phone call interview I had during my application process to become an ambassador. When asked about my connection to donation, I said something along the lines of my son Jacob was a donor, but we recently found out that he was just an eye and tissue donor. They couldn't recover any of his major organs. I had never told anybody this, but I felt disappointed. If there was one thing to come out of his tragic death, it was the hope he could save somebody's life. The woman on the other end of the interview encouraged me not to minimize Jacob's gift of donation and asked if she could read me a letter. I wish I could recall her name because what transpired next healed a part of my soul. It wasn't a letter from one of Jacob's recipients, but the man was a cornea and tissue recipient. I don't remember the specific details, but I remember the gratitude in his words. The way his health had deteriorated to the point where he could not leave his bed, not be able to participate in raising his children, and had become suicidal. The eye, bone, tissue transplants that he received saved his life. Not in a new heart or kidney way, but priceless nonetheless. After hearing that letter, my feelings about Jacob's donations changed drastically. I know even if I never hear from any of Jacob's recipients, he did save and improve the lives of 137 people, and that gift of love will live on. Since learning that Jacob was a registered donor, One Legacy has been there for me in many ways. Follow-up emails, to grief support, to facilitating me becoming an ambassador. We even attended our first 5K One Legacy walk last April for Jacob's 1-year anniversary and plan to make it an annual event in his honor. Next to becoming an ambassador, the most touching way that One Legacy has shown up for me was an unexpected gift. As a nurse, I attend many symposiums. 3 days prior to my first ambassador training, just this past August, I attended a One Legacy pediatric symposium in this very room. It was here I had learned about the memory box. This amazing gift is given to any family that One Legacy approaches about donation, whether they decide to donate or not. These boxes started shortly after Jacob had died, so I didn't receive one. When Daisy Collin, the Director of Family Support Services, heard about my son, she graciously gifted me a memory box. Shortly after, I was able to obtain an EKG strip of Jacob's last heartbeat, which is now in his memory box, along with the lock of hair I saved. These acts of love mean the world to me and reinforce my belief that One Legacy really cares about every family that they come in contact with. Donation has even come full circle for me. If you didn't notice me limping up the stage with my cane, I had surgery last year, the week before Thanksgiving. Like the gentleman in the letter that was read to me, my life is on the way to being vastly improved by donation. In addition to the 3 screws placed in my foot, I also had human bone and tendon grafts. Once again, Daisy went above and beyond to try to facilitate the use of my own son's donation. Unfortunately, my doctor was not able to coordinate, it's very specific, certain banks for certain hospitals, and there was just too much red tape to get through in a timely manner. But out there somewhere is somebody's loved one, a father, a daughter, or a friend that is giving me the ability to walk, hopefully get back to hiking, go on touristy vacations with my daughters, participate in the annual One Legacy 5K in honor of Jacob, even do things we take for granted, like simple walks with my puppy Gigi. Donation is quite literally a second chance at living, and that gift can have a ripple effect. Because of my donor, I will be able to go back to nursing and give life-saving care to my babies and their families. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about my son and our journey with organ donation. As grievers, it means the world to us to share about our loved ones. And thank you for dedicating your lives to the medical profession. It can be daunting. There are those days, and we all have those patients that make you question what you signed up for. But there are also days, patients, and families that make us remember why we do it. And because of a healthcare provider like you who made a call, 137 lives were changed, and Jacob's legacy lives on. So I would like to leave you with this, and the words of my favorite son, here for a good time, not a long time. So make it count, be safe, and God bless. Thank you.